Welcome to Small Steps. My name's Seth Potts, and I want to show you an easy way to calculate age based off of date of birth. So, a lot of times we'll get information in that has not necessarily the complete information you want or you need. I think age is one that is kind of hit or miss with different systems that I've seen or different bits of data that come in. A lot of times you'll get a date of birth, but you won't get the actual age. Now, individually, it's just one person. You can calculate that out in your head typically, figure that out. But what if you have a longer list like this? An easy way to do it is to have a formula that'll just calculate it, and then you can just, replicate that formula all the way down for all of the dates of birth. So, quick example I have here, just a couple bits of information pulled from a record management system. This is just the dates of birth of people that have been marked as offenders for just a short period of time. So, say I'm wanting to see what the average age is of our offenders recently. I could pull this up instead of trying to calculate out for each of these individually how old somebody is. There is a formula that is kind of interesting because it does not necessarily pull up in Excel in the newer versions when you start typing it in, but it is still an active formula in here. So it is, let's see, DATEDIF. So it's date, assuming that means date differential or difference between dates. So just to show how this works, go to this here. We're going to figure out the age of this top one here. So when you start typing it in, and you start typing, it gives you suggestions on different formulas. When you get to the point where you get to the second part of that, you see that disappears. So you're not doing it wrong. It is just not stored in there like that. And if you do the open parentheses, now you see it pulls up kind of what looks like open and close parentheses, like it recognizes that as a formula. So there are three parts to this formula. The first part is going to be the start date. So for date of birth, we're just going to pick that actual date of birth. Now the second part of it is where you could put the end date. So if you could use this for the time between two different dates. You could two different dates of birth. You can see how old somebody is, or years between people, whatever the case may be. It could even be date of birth, calculating age out from, let's just say, an older case. So like at the time you're seeing how old they were, and not necessarily to today. You can use that here. So the end date, what we use for date of birth as of today, is going to be actually a function for today. You see this function returns the current date formatted as a date. You could also just type in the current date, or if you had that listed somewhere, you use that. But for this, we'll just use that today function. So we have the start date, the end date being today, and then the last portion of this is the unit that you want returned in. There are three main ones. There are a couple others that we're not going to necessarily get into. They're not as useful, in my opinion, for what we would need it for. But years, months, and then days. For this, we want to see how many completed years. So the way to do that is you do quotes and Y, and after that you just close the parentheses. And when you click enter, there's 43. So it's going to be 43 and change, obviously, but 43. And then you can just copy that formula down, and now you have a nice list of everyone's ages based on that. So, really, depending on what you want, if you want to see how far into a year, you could wrap formulas around this as well. You could do this and actually divide it by 12 and change that Y. You see here that Y is for years, M is for months, and D is for days. Change that to how many months, and divided by 12. It's going to pull this. I don't know why I see it do that. It changes that formatting to date, and you just change that right back to general, and it'll give you that, and you can kind of clean it up how you want. And let's do the same thing. So you see how many years plus what fraction of the year they are through. So like I say, if you ever need to do this, calculate the age of somebody, your system doesn't pull it. Easy, quick function here, DATEDIF, and just way to use that with the today function wrapped inside of it. If you found this tutorial helpful and would like to see more, click like and subscribe. Next video coming up is going to be over counting cells that contain specific text.